Welcome to Season 3 of the Empowering Women podcast, a production of the Empowering Women in Industry organization. Together, we will hear from ambitious and inspiring career women as they share their stories of success and overcoming career challenges. I'm Charlie Matthews, founder of Empowering Women, and I am proud to introduce our host, Shannon Bumgarner from Femspired.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Empowering Women in Industry podcast. This is, believe it or not, episode number 9, and we're coming to you in the middle, at least for me, in the middle of the hot summer here in the South in July. So I'm super excited to be with you today. And on today's podcast, I've not known Gina very long, but I feel like she is a soul sister already. I'm so excited to introduce you to Gina Covarrubias. Her distinctive background blends life coaching expertise with 12 plus years of engineering/technology experience in government, academia, and corporate aerospace, which I'm just fascinated by. But what I love the most, honestly, is that Gina has founded Deliberate Doing LLC as an exclusive STEM coaching service dedicated to helping technical professionals defeat career despair. And so if you've got that in your life, boy, you're on the right podcast today. So welcome, Gina. How are you?
Thank you, Shannon. I'm great. So happy to be here with you today.
Well, we're welcoming you to the Empowering Women community. I think we'll see you at a meetup in the near future. But as we go into that meetup and learning more about you, I love to start with the tell me your story. I just think I learned so much from our guests when they tell me their story. So I want to start with your personal STEM story. You and I share the engineering background in common. What attracted you to a STEM career? And then maybe what are some of your coaches or mentors along the way?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Shannon. My story, wow. It is definitely not a linear one.
Which is what I love about it, actually. So I think this is the best part.
So I will try to make this not more than about 5 minutes long. As a kid, I was always interested in the aerospace world. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to fly planes. I loved astronomy and all the things. So I grow up and graduate from high school, and what else am I going to do? Well, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer, right? That to me,
Right.
That was the only option.
So you literally always had your head in the clouds, right?
I
That's what you're telling me.
I
There you
did.
go.
Good way to say it, Shannon. So I was lucky in that sense because there are so many people who don't know what they want to do. But for me, it was clear cut. So I start going to school and do my thing, and I realize how difficult it is. And I'm like, wow, this is so hard. And I don't know if I'm ever going to graduate. And so I'm a first generation college graduate. And
oh, wow.
My parents never talked to me about college. My dad was an electrician, and he worked in the steel mills for 43 years. And, they did the absolute best they could to raise 5 kids. But they never talked to me about college. It was just kind of something I knew I was going to do. And so I work my butt off, and it takes me a long time to graduate from college because, number one, I didn't have a pot of money to just pay for everything outright.
Oh, true.
And so I took out a lot of student loans, and I worked a lot part-time while I was going to school.
And that's so hard. Engineering, at least for me, Gina, was so incredibly difficult. And I was, I would consider myself an above average student. So I can't imagine doing that and trying to work your way through school. That would have been so incredibly hard.
It was very difficult for me, Shannon. It was definitely a shock. And I didn't know what I was in for until I got there. And I really had to learn how to be a student. And that's what it came down to. And I didn't know. So I had to learn the hard way and ended up taking some courses over. So, of course, that delayed my graduation a little bit as well. And so I was a little bit older when I graduated with my bachelor's. And so by the time I graduated, I'm like, wow, I made it. I actually earned my degree. This is fantastic. Now I need to find a job. And
To pay for that degree, right?
that's right. That's right. And I almost felt as if I were entitled, Shannon. I don't know about you, but I think based on what I've seen, it's common for engineering students to check the boxes, take the classes, get the degree, and graduate, and then they feel like, okay, now where's my reward? I worked really
Oh, I
hard.
totally felt that way. I mean,
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have, but I did because I really wanted one of those T-shirts that says "I survived chemical engineering
Oh,
school." That's what I
yes.
totally wanted, but it doesn't work
Exactly.
that way.
It doesn't work that way, but we don't know that coming out of college, right? We just think the world is out there. My dream job is out there somewhere. I just have to find it.
Right.
And so I go out there and I start working and I move to another state. And I realize, this is okay. Like, it's all right. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. I was scared to death. And I think a lot of new graduates are before they start their first engineering jobs. And you're shaking your head, yes.
Yeah, that just for the audience really quickly, it's a funny story. So, my first job was in a paper mill, and if you've ever been in a paper mill, they are huge buildings. And I think there was a day or two in the beginning when I didn't even come out of my office because I wasn't sure I'd find my way back. So, to your point,
Yeah.
those first jobs, you go from this structured college experience to this ta-da, and you're like, now what do I do?
And it's so scary. And, I just told myself, I'll, just do the best you can. You just kind of have to learn as you go. And so I start working my first job and I'm like, well, this is like, it's okay. I don't love it. So there must be something better.
Right.
And I kind of felt like a fish out of water. And I felt like I needed to find where I belonged. So I talked to management and eventually I was able to transfer into a different job. And once again, it was okay. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And what I did is I worked on my master's degree while I was working my first job. So again,
And
working
remind me, what's your master's degree in? Was
my
it in
master's
engineering or
degree,
something different?
it is in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And so I'm working full time, taking classes part time, which again was really
You really
difficult.
are a glutton for punishment. There's my first learning today.
Well, I knew I needed to get it done, Shannon, and I knew it would open more doors for me. So my eyeball was on getting that master's degree and then eventually getting an MBA, but that was later down the line. So I work for about 3 years and finally finish with my master's degree. And you would think, Shannon, that would be a time to celebrate. You would think it would be a happy time in one's
Heck
life.
yeah, I'd be throwing a party.
I did not throw a party, Shannon, far from it.
Oh
I
no.
graduated with my master's and I came to the realization, I told myself, I don't want to be an engineer. Now I have 2 engineering degrees and I don't want to be an engineer, at least based on the work experience I've had so far. This is not what I want to do the rest of my life. So I felt really stuck and I was depressed. And so I tried to come up with a solution and I thought, okay, maybe I just need to switch employers. Maybe I just need a
Yeah,
different
you're
kind of
thinking
job.
maybe my experience is just the wrong one. Like I'm not in the right place, not the right fit.
Yes. And I even thought at times, maybe I got the wrong degree. And that's a really tough place to be because knowing how hard you've worked, seeing all the student loans that you've taken out, all the sacrifices you made to work and go to school at the same time. So it was all very hard to come to terms with. It was very difficult for me to admit this is not what I want. So I didn't feel like I had a choice. I moved back to where I'm from, which is Indiana, got a different job, started working again.
And
And
that job, was that in engineering as well or not?
it was,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And again, at first it was okay. Like I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. It was just kind of there. And luckily with that job, I had the opportunity to move around and try many different types of jobs. So I started out very technical and I ended up very administrative.
Interesting.
And so I did a lot of in between. Well, there was a time, it was about 10 years ago, I was under a lot of stress and I blamed it on my career. And I kept telling myself, things are not going the way they should be. This is not what I want. I don't know where I belong. Once again, same pattern came up. And I'll tell you what, it was severe enough that my body just gave out. Like physically, my body felt like it quit working. And I was sick. I got really sick for several months. And I was out of work for about a year and a half. And went through the whole medical system, saw plenty of doctors. That was no fun. And I blamed it on my career stress.
Yep.
And so I start recovering. Eventually, I get back into the workforce. I start working again, and I tried a new job. I actually became an academic advisor
Okay.
at Purdue University,
Okay.
which is where I graduated from.
Okay.
And so I thought, that sounds like it's right up my alley. I get to work with students. I get to advise them. I would love to do that. And so I went ahead and did that for a couple of years. And I realized in the academic world, if you don't have a PhD, you're not going anywhere. Like you're kind of at a dead end. So eventually I get back into the corporate world, and then I had the opportunity to work for the government and take a job as an aerospace engineer. And I realized, Shannon, that after I went through my sickness and I got back in the workforce and I was working and contributing again and I felt better, I realized I had been given a second chance. And I thought to myself, you know what? I need to be doing something differently with my life. This world, this working for corporate or government or whoever it is, I felt like that's not where I belonged. So I decided to leave the profession, Shannon, and I did that.
I tell you, Gina, we taught this in our pre-call. I just think you're incredibly brave, because a lot of us will stick with the thing that we know versus the thing that we don't know. And that can be as simple as your move to academia away from corporate America, right? Going from being a more technical roles to this crazy world of academia, which I've never worked there, but my guess is it's very, very different. And then the thing that you said that really resonated with me is where I should be. And I think so many of us, I can pick on myself, say, well, I should be a whatever by this point, or I should be on this track. And I'm like, nope, there's no shoulds. There's where you fit in, where you belong. Let me change that. Not where you fit in, where you belong and where you're happy.
Oh, I was very guilty of that, Shannon. Telling myself I should be at this level by now and I should be this by now. And I saw a lot of despondency in all the places and all the departments that I worked. I saw a lot of people who settled and they ended up coming in every day and just kind of going through the motions. And as an observer of people, I told myself, I don't want to do that. I don't want to live that way. I'm not going to live by default.
Oh gosh, wait a minute. I have to say that one again. So people who've got their pens, and I know you do, I'm not going to live by default. I love that. You need to coin that one.
Well, I observed it way too much, Shannon, and I found myself almost falling into the same pattern. So when I decided, I've been given a second chance and I need to really make my life count, that's what made me walk away from my profession. And mind you, I didn't run away, and there wasn't a certain instance where I just decided I'm done, I've had it. It was an accumulation of thinking over time, and I just decided I have done enough and seen enough and experienced enough of this whole world, whether it's corporate, academia, or government, to understand what I'd be leaving behind. And so I peacefully left, and I was very much at peace with my decision. I did not have a job lined up. I was going to live off my savings. And Shannon, my plan was to do some self-reflection and figure out, what is Gina supposed to be doing?
Oh, I know. And when we had the pre-call as well, I think you told me a lot of your friends and family were like, Gina, have you lost your mind?
Absolutely.
But you know what?
Absolutely.
I believe sometimes when that happens, that's when you know you're in the right place.
Yes. Very good way to say it, Shannon.
Yeah.
And so that summer after I left, I decided I need to make my next dream come true. I don't know what
Yep.
that looks like. I don't know what that means for me, but I'm going to figure it out. And I was fortunate enough to be able to live off my savings for some time and actually do some self-reflection. And I just dove into online courses and podcasts and books. One thing led to another, Shannon, and I discovered what life coaching was. I stumbled upon it, and it instantly resonated with me.
And tell me, how did you stumble upon it? Really curious.
One day, as I'm getting ready to do my yoga workout, I'm scrolling through Spotify and I'm looking for a new podcast to listen to. And I see one by a life coach. And it kind of caught me off guard. And I thought, I don't know what life coaching is. That sounds a little hokey to me. I don't know what this
Yeah,
lady
a
has.
lot of us engineers like, yeah, that's foo-foo. I don't want anything to do with that, right?
Right, of course. And I thought, that sounds a little hokey, but I'm willing to listen to this.
So there was curiosity. There's another lesson, right? Be curious and listen to the
Exactly.
podcast. And you might have turned it off halfway through and say, yep, I still believe it's hokey.
That's right. And I wanted to know if it really was hokey. And it piqued my interest enough that I was willing to give one shot to an episode. So I put it on and I'm like, I had a moment, Shannon. It was a moment in my life. And I forgot about my surroundings. I forgot about everything except what I was hearing in this podcast. And I thought, whoa, what is happening here? Something's going on. So I went to the very beginning of that podcast. I listened to episode 1 and 2 and 3, and I was hooked. And I thought, that is it. This is my answer. I should be doing that podcast. That should be me. So I looked into different life coaching schools, signed up with the one who actually produced that podcast, and went through a year of training. And I came out of the training and I thought, man, do I have a really great solution here. All those people that I used to work with who were despondent, who were going through the motions, who were living by default, who were unhappy, I know how to help them now. Now I understand what my problem used to be. So I created my business, which is called Deliberate Doing. And that's what I do now, Shannon.
And the rest is history, right?
Yes, yes. That's my
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I love this story. And I'll be honest. So hopefully the folks that are listening today have listened to the prior 2 podcasts. But if you haven't, I'll just give you a little sneak peek. So in our May and June podcast, we highlighted 2 phenomenal organizations, Girls Code It and Smart Girls HQ. And both of their missions were really to generate interest in STEM with our younger generation. But in today, and this is really why I'm just so excited, Gina, pardon me, is here. Is in today's episode, I wanted to switch it up a little bit. I really wanted to talk about how we're encouraging women already in the engineering field. And honestly, listeners, this was a little selfish because this is where I love to spend my time. So I really am going to probe Gina a little bit today on what main challenges do you see for women in their early to mid STEM careers, and maybe how are you helping them with that?
Oh, such a good question, Shannon. By far, my number one answer, self-confidence or lack thereof.
Oh, wow.
We are not taught in school how to communicate very well, what it means to have people skills, what it means to serve our clients, how to deal with uncertainty, how to work with difficult people. These are all things, Shannon, we just kind of have to learn as we go.
They're not easy to learn, right? You don't come with there's not a
No,
manual on how to have courageous conversations, right? Or to be
there's
confident when you
not.
walk into a room and there's nobody in that room that looks like you, or maybe even acts like you, or comes from a similar background or anything.
Exactly, Shannon. And, I would argue today that your your people skills and your soft skills, or your power skills, however you want to refer to them, those are just as important as your technical skills. You could be the smartest cookie in the room. It doesn't mean squat if you don't know how to communicate or get along with people. So specifically, I would point out self-confidence. And I think that that's an issue for most young graduates, especially starting out in their first jobs.
Right.
But women specifically, I think they have a harder time building their self-confidence and understanding what it takes to build self-confidence. So by far, that would be my number one answer.
Okay.
If I had to choose another answer for challenges that young women face, besides self-confidence, I think what I would say is something I wish I knew is that you are going to be facing like all these difficulties at work, right? There's going to be unfairness. There might be discrimination. You're going to see people in positions that perhaps they don't deserve. You're going to butt heads with people you work with. Customers are going to be annoying. And all these things are going to happen in the workplace. And what I want young women and men to know is that that doesn't mean that things have gone wrong. That doesn't mean you have to get up and change jobs or switch employers. What that means is that you're experiencing life. That is life. And so what I teach people is how to deal with those things in a healthy and productive way.
Yep.
Instead of having to run away every time something bad happens. If that makes sense.
That resonates. So there's a program at my day job that it's about values and how do you address values conflicts in the workplace. And what she talks about in that program is normalizing it. It's normal. Expect to have values conflicts. It's normal in your personal life and in your professional life. And I think you're saying something similar here. That's just life. That's just the way it works in the work world. And you've got to learn how to have your own productive way of dealing with it.
Absolutely. You have to learn your own productive way of dealing with it, that you hit the nail on the head. And I think a lot of younger professionals, they have visions and they have dreams and expectations of what the world is supposed to look like and
what it should be, right? It's
Yes.
that whole should word again. I think we need to
Exactly.
X that word from the vocabulary, right? Should.
Well, exactly, because when we have expectations, the world should be this way, and my boss should act this way, and I should get promoted. We set ourselves up to be disappointed because we don't have any control over those externals in our lives.
Yeah, true.
And I think
I wish I'd have known that about 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Shannon.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have dreams and visions, but when you become emotionally attached to the outcomes, that's when you set yourself up for trouble.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So I'm going to pivot a little slightly, but I love what you say in your bio about defeating your own career despair, because I was like, I can even feel that. Such a great word. How have you found that career despair typically shows up in your clients? What does that look like?
Oh, gosh. Another great question, Shannon. Career despair commonly shows up in the form of, I don't know if engineering is right for me. I don't know what I want to do next. I don't know
if I had money for every time I've heard that second one from me and all the other people in my life. Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. What's number 3?
Number 3 would be, I don't know if I should go back to school, or I don't know if I should change jobs. I don't know if it's worth moving my family, picking up and going to another state to try another job that may not work out. I don't know if engineering is right for me, or if I should completely change course and maybe become a lawyer or maybe become a doctor. Career despair could look like, I really hate where I am. I hate my career path and I don't have a solution. Career despair could look like, I'm okay with where I'm at, but I want something better. And I want to elevate my career, but I don't know how to do that. Or I don't have control over that. So career despair could mean all these different things, Shannon.
Interesting. And you know what? It sounds like a lot of them have in common is almost sense of being frozen, meaning that I am just so frozen by the situation I'm in, the lack of not understanding where to go, that I'm just sort of just stuck and frozen in this space. And maybe I'm really unhappy. Maybe I'm just sort of on the fence, but at the same time, I'm not engaged in what I'm doing. Right.
Exactly. Stuck is a really great word to describe the way some people feel in their current positions, especially given COVID. So COVID has thrown a wrench into things, right? And the other thing I'd like to add is sometimes people find themselves wondering, there's got to be more than this. Like, this is not what I went to school for. This is not why I worked so hard to put all my eggs into this basket just to be content, or just to get by, or just to make a paycheck. So again, despair shows up in many different ways.
Yeah, I will tell you, Gina, that really resonates with me. So most of my listeners know I'm a huge Brene Brown fan.
Yeah, so am
And she's,
I.
yeah, and she's coined the term, she, instead of a midlife crisis, she calls it a midlife unraveling. And I just love that, because it's like your whole purpose, your being, this whole thing you thought was supposed to happen just begins to unravel. And for me, I just love that word. And I think it really links into, what have I tried to fit myself into versus where have I really tried to just be happy and belong. And those are two very different things, but I can totally resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon. And I'll just add to that that a big mistake many of us make, especially the younger professionals, is that they look to their career, they look toward their job to bring them happiness in life. And that is not the way it works. And I wish somebody would have told me that when I was in
Yeah,
school.
that happiness comes from in here, right? And I'm pointing, for those who can't see me, I'm pointing toward my heart. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So I think, speaking of, okay, well, we found out what career despair looks like, and if there's a listener out there that does have never had this feeling, I totally want to talk to you. So please reach out to me if you've never had any of those feelings, because I really want to find out what your secret is. But I know you have a video you just released within the last month or so on your website that highlighted 5 workplace lessons, if I can get that out correctly, to elevate your career. And I think it's helping to get you past some of that career despair. So can you tell our audience about maybe 1 or 2 of those lessons, and maybe examples of how they could apply that in their current career despair, or just trying to elevate their career?
Oh, absolutely, Shannon. Thank you for asking that. And I will expand for a few moments on what I just said a moment ago.
Oh, sure.
And that is about looking to your job to make you happy. Big mistake that I made back in the day. I think a lot of young professionals, again, make that mistake. And they think that because they've checked the boxes, that they're going to go out into the world and they're going to find this job and they're going to make decent money and make a good living and live happily ever after. That was kind of the vision that was sold to me when I was a young adult, when I was a student, actually. And what I want people to understand is that if you look toward your job to make yourself happy, you're going to be disappointed again and again and again. If you keep switching jobs to try to find the right one to make you happy, you are going to be disappointed. As you said, Shannon, happiness comes from within. That is something you have to generate for yourself. When you can be whole with yourself, when you have high self-confidence, when you value everything you can bring to the table and create that happiness inside of you, then you can go out there and find that great job or that dream job. And so dream job was another one of the lessons that I talked about in that video, which I highly recommend people watch, because these are really great lessons that, again, I wish I would have known back in the day when I was just
Right.
starting out. And I thought my dream job was already out there somewhere, and I just had to go find it. Almost like a scavenger hunt. Right, Shannon?
Yeah, if I look long enough and if I pick up enough rocks, it's out there somewhere, right?
Exactly. It's out there somewhere. I just have to find the right employer. I have to find the right job description, and it'll all work out. So what I want the audience to know is that it is very, very rare for people to find their dream jobs, and some people do. I've met a few, but again, it's a very rare thing. And what really needs to happen is you need to make yourself a dream come true first. You need to make yourself whole. You need to love yourself unconditionally. You need to build your self-confidence so that you can go out there in the world and create that dream job. So most people want to go out there and find it and then make themselves happy, but it really should be the other way around.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact TED Talk because I'm a complete TED nerd, but her name is Celeste Headley, and she talks about, she said, let me just spell this really quick. There is no dream job. You take your skills, and she was actually a trained singer. And now she does NPR, at least at the time she was doing NPR, so like broadcasting. And she said it's really about her, essentially her message is really, it's about that journey, right? It's that taking that journey and from within, knowing those things that you love and you like, and you might go to that journey and say, yep, I thought I liked engineering, but yeah, it's not for me, right? But this part I like, so I'm going to take this part and go grow it, right? It's, to your point, it's about turning inward and finding out what you like. Because when she said that, let me warn the audience, there's no dream job. You can almost hear the audience go, ah, right?
Right. Right. And you bring up a really great point about failure. And oftentimes people might label themselves a failure, or they might label the job as a failure if they try something and it doesn't work out for them, or if they find they don't like it, or if they find they don't like the team, then they say, oh, I never should have taken this, and now I regret it, and it was a failure.
By the way, Gina, I've become to hate that word because I think
Yes.
failure is so negative, because I've learned more from what people would call failure than I've learned for success. And I know that sounds super hokey and fluffy, but it's really true. And you really need those learning positions or opportunities or moments to become the person you're going to be. You have to really messed up or tried something weird and go, yep, that didn't work, to be the person that you eventually become.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Failure is nothing more than information, and information
I love that.
is power.
Okay, I'm writing that one down. Failure is nothing more than information, and information is power. I love that.
Exactly. It is just as valuable to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you do want to do.
Yep. Or know that the first time you tried it, I used to joke with a friend of mine because he thought the first time he ever tried it, it needed to be just perfect. And his dad would tell him, well, one would only expect that if you do it again, it's going to get better. And then you're like, duh, right?
Yeah. Right, of course. And so the last thing that I'll say about looking to your job to make you happy, or for looking for that dream job in your life, what I want people to know, the big takeaway from that is every time you change jobs or employers, or you change your circumstances, you're taking the same mentality with you. If you have problems where you are now in your job, it's just a matter of time before you see similar problems in the next job, and the next one, and the next one, until you do work on yourself.
Yep. That is so true. So speaking of like really thinking and working on yourself, I've heard this term lately in like at least here in the US, post the real COVID pandemic, at least things are starting to change a bit. There's a term that's been coined called the Great Resignation. And it's really about people leaving companies, attrition rates are higher than normal. And I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on that, or advice or thoughts about that great resignation concept and what could be causing it as part of that process. I find it fascinating.
It is fascinating, Shannon. And I will say thank you to COVID for, number one, showing employers that it's possible that people can be productive while working from home. And number two, thank you, COVID, for allowing people the time to do some self-reflection and to ask themselves, is this employer really what I want for my life? Is this job really what I need for me right now? What else is out there? I think that COVID has really enabled people to take a step back and say, what am I doing here? Is this where I want to be? How is it helping me move forward in my life?
Yeah,
And
not where I
mhm.
should be. Back to that should word, where I want to be and I belong, not where I should be. Yep.
And according to the Society of Human Resources, over 50% of people in North America are going to be leaving their jobs this year alone.
Are you serious? Okay,
Absolutely.
I did not know that statistics. I'd read a couple of really short articles and heard the term, but I did not heard that. Interesting.
So I think it's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful thing that employees are demanding more from employers, more benefits or more work from home or more money, what have you. I think COVID has really brought that about. So that plays a lot into this great resignation that you speak of.
Yep,
And
interesting.
and I do think that it's a good thing overall because sometimes employers have been known to take advantage. And I think sometimes too often they have the upper hand. And so I think it's a great thing for people to try to reflect and say, what am I doing with my life? What is it that I want? Is my employer satisfying that right now?
Yeah, it's
And
interesting, and I'm going to flip the question a bit.
mhm.
So, having been a leader of people in my day job, and obviously part of a larger company, any thoughts or advice for leaders and or company executives on how to attack this from that standpoint?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a great question. Um, my advice for leaders or for executives is if you can't trust your workforce, then I think you need to take a step back yourself and look at
No,
your
good
culture.
point. Yep.
I think it starts with the culture and the quality of your hiring, I would say. And if you continue to employ people that you don't trust, that's kind of a problem for both
Yeah, it kind
sides.
of makes you wonder, right? Yep.
It
Yeah,
kind of
I would
does.
say one from my standpoint, Gina, is I think the blessing that I thank COVID for is really seeing people as full human beings, not just as that person, so to say, that shows up in the office, but their whole human being, like all their dogs and their family and their wants and desires personally, like they like to garden or whatever, right? You're I it has really given me the blessing as a leader of really seeing the whole human being, not just that human being that shows up on my team every day. So that's probably my advice is take that blessing and run with it, because I think that drives the true culture, the culture you want when you come to work. Yep.
Exactly. Excellent point. Yes. Thank you, COVID, for that as well. Number
Yep.
three. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It, anything else you've learned along the way before we end today you'd want to share with our audience in terms of overcoming career despair or evaluating where you are in your career? Any final thoughts?
My final thought is we're going to go back to this word should, Shannon. And I think a lot of people feel like they have to be on a certain career path. And I feel like too many people ask themselves, what is my right career path? And what I would like to say to the audience is that that is really a terrible question to ask yourself. It is very self-limiting, and it's a closed-minded question because it assumes there's only one right answer. And then it puts the pressure on you as the employee to find out what that one right answer is, because all the rest are wrong. And that's not the way careers work.
Nope.
So I would encourage the audience to instead ask yourself more open-minded questions. And I have a whole webinar on my website about career path. Ask yourself open-minded questions and get rid of what is my right career path. For example, you could ask yourself, how might this decision align with my values? That requires you knowing what your values are.
Which sometimes is easier said than done. You really, to your point on the COVID self-reflection, it did at least cause me to step back and say, no kidding, what is really important to me?
That's right, exactly. What is really important to me? And that goes back to knowing what your own values are. And a lot of people don't quite know. They haven't sat and thought about, what are my values? What is it that means a lot to me? What is my priority? So that's just one example. And I have other examples on my website, again,
Okay.
of questions people
Interesting.
could ask themselves. But asking yourself, what's my right path? There is no right or wrong, is the short answer.
Right. I love that. I like to stop asking self-limiting questions.
Yeah.
Or trying to fit yourself into somebody else's career path, because that looks like what you should do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that can be so self-destructive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to, as we near the end of our time together, what's next for you and Deliberate Doing? Anything exciting or new on the horizon for you and your company?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I recently finished, in May, I finished teaching a course for the first time, and it was fantastic. And so I would say what's exciting is that I would like to teach it live again this fall. I haven't figured out the dates yet.
Okay.
It's called Overcoming Career Constraints. And
I like that.
thank you. What the course does, Shannon, is it teaches a person all of these people skills, these power skills, these communication skills that you and I have discussed today, and then some. It teaches you how to create a solid foundation for yourself so that you can go out there and create that great job for yourself. And you can go out there and elevate your career right now, no matter what your status is. So I'm happy to say that will be taught live this fall. And
Okay.
if anybody is interested in either watching the recording, which they could buy right now, or waiting until the fall for the live version, and if they mention your podcast to me, Shannon, I would be happy to give them half off the price.
Oh my gosh. So listeners, you better reach out to Gina, because she's going to give you a huge discount on that program. So I do, Gina, you've really led me into my final question is, so it sounds like this overcoming career constraints. I think I want to be there live because I do better live. So how can we find you and keep following you so we know when that's coming and all the other good stuff that you're working on?
Thank you for that, Shannon. My website is deliberatedoing.com. And my website offers plenty of free resources for those of you who are interested in checking out some of the things that I have to say and learning about my teaching style. I have plenty of recordings on there, old webinars and videos that I've made. I also have a career blog people can read through with all kinds of topics related to your career. And I also have a monthly newsletter sign up for those of you who want to follow me on a monthly basis. And in the newsletter, I always announce upcoming free webinars that I'll be giving.
Okay.
And on my website, I have an events page where I will announce upcoming webinars as well.
Okay, perfect.
And I will also announce the dates for my fall course for those of you who are interested. And I also have on my website the very first class of Overcoming Career Constraints. If anybody's interested in watching the first class, it's about 35 minutes long.
Okay.
You can watch it on my website.
Okay.
So I would direct people to go to my YouTube channel or my website, deliberatedoing.com.
And we'll put both of those in the show notes, by the way. So if you didn't quite catch that, we will put, I always try to be really good about putting that stuff in the show notes.
Thank you for that. And the
Absolutely.
last thing I'd like to say is that I always offer 2 free sessions to anybody who's interested in doing a deep dive. And we take a look at what's going on with you and we strategize. This is where you are, this is where you need to be, and this is how you're going to get there. So for anybody who wants to do some self-exploration, just let me know and we'll set it up.
Okay, awesome. You actually took the last question out of my mouth, which was just, do you do one-on-one help? So there you go. You answered my final question before I even asked it today. Gina, I want to say a very sincere thank you for your time today. I know our Empowering Women community has learned quite a bit from you. We hope to see you soon, either at our conference or at a meetup
Sure
event.
thing.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. And you have inspired me. I've learned to take the word should out of my vocabulary, the word failure out of my vocabulary. And I'm going to end today with Gina's quote of stop living your life by default. And with that, thanks everyone for your time. Thank you, Gina, and we'll all talk soon. See you next time.
Thank you, Shannon. Bye-bye.